Hello, I'm Rachel. In this tutorial, I'll teach you how to create hyper-realistic water reflection using the Color Therapy app. With water reflections, the reflection will show the same image but just a little faded or darker and should have blur lines from the movement of the water. Follow along with me by searching for boat in the search box. So I usually like to start off with the reference photo, so I found this little paper boat and I like how it's orange and it contrasts against the bluish water, so we have nice complementary colors there. So I'll use this as a reference for my image. So since I'm choosing orange for the paper boat, just tap in the boat with this light orange from the Vibrant palette. I'm also going to color in those flowers too. I don't want to worry about them for now. And then I'll use that brighter orange from the Vibrant palette and tap to fill in the reflection. Now let's tap to fill in the water. So under the blue palette, I'm going to use sort of a dull blue. I'll use the second color on the top row and just tap to fill it in. I'm also including the flowers. It's going to be easier to create all of your reflections and blending if you do the flowers last. So let's just tap to fill them in first. Now let's add in our highlights to the water. So in the same blue palette, I'm going to use the fifth color on the top row and then go under the airbrush tool. Set the size to 25 and opacity at 100. Now make sure coloring inside the lines mode is set to off, and you're going to just begin to draw circular lines kind of going around the boat. And they can kind of overlap here and there, and they don't have to be complete. So something sort of like that. Now let's raise the size to 70, but lower the opacity to 40. I'm going to use the darkest blue from that blue palette and add in a bit of shadow. And I'm mostly focusing on the left side, but you can do sort of a vignette as well. So I'm just adding it in here and there to the edges. And going back to that light blue, I'm going to add in a little bit more and just sort of fill in a few areas so that it blends in a little better. Now let's blend our highlights. So select the smear tool, set the size to 17 and intensity at 100. Now using your finger, just go ahead and start to blend and smear all of the water. Go in the direction of the rings of water that you drew. And just kind of go back and forth, blending and smearing it. So you can let some of the darker areas just sort of blend into the lighter reflected areas and vice versa. Now let's work on the boat reflection. Let's set the airbrush tool to size 20 and opacity 65. Now using the brown from the basic palette, turn coloring inside the lines mode to on now and zoom into your orange part of the reflection. Go ahead and shade underneath the boat first into the orange area. And then you can switch over to the sort of rust brown next to that and add in some just little dark shadow lines going across. And if you need to turn off coloring inside the lines mode, go ahead. Now let's lower opacity down to 25. Now using our darker orange and coloring inside the lines mode is off, you want to start to add in reflections going across the water. So I'm really just sort of extending them past the shape of our reflection just a little bit, kind of just bringing lines off from there. Now let's go back to the smear tool. You can keep the same settings and then just begin to smear and blend in those lines. So now we have sort of a blurry line for our reflection. So I'm kind of just going in a back and forth motion. That'll help it look more realistic. And feel free to let some of the water just blend into the orange part as well of the reflection. Now all that's left is just shading the boat and shading the flowers. So you can use the same settings if you want. You can turn coloring inside the lines mode to on, and you can just trace around your boat, adding in your highlights and shadows. And then one step that you definitely want to do is add a few reflections onto the boat itself with white. So I would do the size at about 10% and opacity at 20, and you can just add in little squiggly lines going across the boat. So these lines are sort of just reflecting the light off of the water onto the boat. Then you can also blend those with the smear tool as well. Here's the final image after adding a little shading on the paper boat and coloring in the flowers. Remember, it's always helpful to look at a reference photo of something similar to your image for best results. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Color Therapy YouTube channel so you don't miss any new tutorial videos. Thanks for watching our tutorial. You can get the Color Therapy app for free on the App Store.